Hello YouTube, this is Marco. I'm your watch cardinal bringing you another video here today talking lottery watch collections. That's right guys, your kind of dream or lottery watch collection. What would you get if money was no object? And before we begin, I do want to do a quick wristwatch check. What am I wearing? I'm wearing the 126710 BLNR, the Bruce Wayne as I like to call it. So let's just jump straight into it. The reason I wanted to do a video like this is it's not something that you see kind of very often. You know, people do their kind of dream watch collections and what have you, but in my opinion, they don't really show a lot of thought behind their collection. It's really just a hodgepodge of a lot of watches that they want or that they think that they want, but it doesn't really show any kind of language apart from, you know, you just have a lot of money and you're just acquiring a ton of pieces, in my opinion. So I wanted to give a collection that I thought was concise and to the point. And to me, I really think that 8 watches is really ideal. So the reason being is that obviously the watch world is, you know, filled with a number of tremendous watches that anybody would be more than happy to add to any collection. And it's really too easy to go down kind of that rabbit hole. You know, it's a slippery slope to go from one watch to 15. And so I felt like 8 was a reasonable number that will allow you to enjoy the hobby and allow you to get a number of really incredible watches, but at the same time, enjoy the hobby somewhat still responsibly, financially speaking, right? So, of course, one thing that is never mentioned is where exactly they're going to store their watch collection, and I think that is, you know, something that's very important. At the end of the day, storage of these watches, to me, is one of the most neglected things, and what would I get? Personally, I would get an LV box. I mean, come on, guys. Who wouldn't want an 8-piece Louis Vuitton box at the end of the day? So, yes, I would get, probably, if I had to pick, I do like the damier graphite with the kind of the damier pattern in black with the kind of gray interior. That's really my favorite. So that would be kind of the box I would probably go after. I do also like the monogram Eclipse that JJ got in black with the gray interior. But if I had to pick one, I do like the damier just a touch more. I think it's a little bit more young, a little bit more resembles kind of what I'm all about. So that is the box that it would hold the watches. But of course, the most important part are the contents. So what exactly would be the contents of that box? Well, the first one, of course, would be my favorite Rolex in the collection, in my personal collection, and my favorite Rolex, I mean, pretty much of all time at this point. I just love this piece. And that is the 126710, the BLNR, the Bruce Wayne. That's right, guys. I think every collection should have at least one steel Rolex. I don't care what the model is, whether it's a Datejust, Milgauss, or what have you. Or everything in between. I think that a steel Rolex is just so usable, so practical, perfect for every day. And, you know, I really love this watch. Again, obviously it has a ton of sentimental value, not to harp on. But, you know, it's a watch that I really love and enjoy and have for a long time. And, you know, to have it as part of my collection, I really enjoy it. And it certainly would be part of my Grail level collection also. Now, the next one is one that actually a viewer just recently got, my man Cars and Chrono. And that is the Moser Funky Blue Streamliner Chronograph. I think it's absolutely beautiful. It's got this retro vintage look to it and vibe. I love the bracelet and design. Ultimately, obviously, steel sports watches, especially blue dial steel sports watches, are very in demand as of late. And obviously, this is no exception in this case. But one thing I will mention is, you know, it's not like your kind of typical Genta design sports watches. It does have its own design language. And I really think that that blue dial just pops and stands out overall, and it's unlike really anything else you will see. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that movement. The movement is absolutely stunning. I think it has over 400 parts to it, and it just looks absolutely incredible. I mean, yeah, that is definitely going to be a part of the collection. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of chronographs, but that one in particular, I really like. And now there's another chronograph, right? Now that I just mentioned that I didn't like chronographs, here's another one. And this is one that I would really be, you know, honored to add to my personal collection, right? Obviously, I can't own all of these watches I'm going to mention, but I would like to own this one day. And it is the Vacheron Historiques Corne de Vache in steel. I love the Corne de Vache, mostly because of those cow horn lugs. Obviously, Corne de Vache in French translate roughly to cow horns in English. And so, you know, that's kind of the beautiful shape of those teardrop-esque lugs. And I just love it. The case is sumptuous. I think it's absolutely beautiful. The movement is the Lemania 2310 Eboche, which is, you know, more famously known as the 321 movement. But of course, it was also, you know, the movement that was used in the Patek 5070, the Roger Dubuis Homage chronographs, as well as Breguet chronographs. And, you know, Vacheron goes the extra mile with this movement. You know, it's a Geneva Seal watch movement and case. So, you know, it's a beautiful watch overall. I love that kind of almost sectorish dial. It's just phenomenal, and it's one that I would really like to add to my collection in the future. The next one is something that features a remotoire. It's from the Groeneveld brothers, who are the Dutch brothers. And it's the Groeneveld remotoire in steel. I like the one with the salmon dial in particular. I think that frosted salmon dial is just absolutely stunning, out of this world. And of course, for those who don't know what a remotoire is, it is a constant force mechanism. So basically, it's allowing for an even supply of power over the course of a watch's power reserve. You know, so it kind of combats the huge imbalances that you will see when a watch is fully wound and minimally wound, and everything in between. So I think it is really cool. It's a lot of mechanics really to make your watch a little bit more accurate. And for that reason and that reason alone, I think it deserves to be part of this collection. And obviously the movement, finishing, and architecture of that watch is, you know, really stunning. And one thing of interest is the movement is actually in steel, which is, you know, very different from what a lot of watchmakers and watch brands will use, because, you know, steel is notoriously hard to work with and difficult to finish, especially at that high of a level. So it just goes to show you, and it's a real testament to the level of sophistication of the Groeneveld brothers. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, it is an 8-second remotoire, which is very different from a lot of remotoires. Typically, they're a 1-second remotoire, and it drives a deadbeat seconds, as you'll see in the next watch that I'm going to mention. But this one is an 8-second, so you'll see that thing on the dial spin every 8 seconds. So I think that's just an added level of cool factor overall. Now, one that does feature a remotoire and does have a deadbeat second is the next watch on my list, which is the FP Journe Chronomètre Optimum. I like in particular the black label. I think that contrast between the white hour and second subdials and the black kind of outer dial just looks absolutely phenomenal. It's such a beautiful watch. And one thing, again, of interest is not just that it's a rose gold movement from FP Journe, you know, who's probably one of the most important watchmakers of the 21st century. But, you know, one thing I've noticed is that it is the watch that he would make for himself. So as far as I know, it's one of the last watches that he actually worked on himself to make the actual movement and the dial and what have you. But it's also a watch that a client kind of approached him with and said, listen, what's the watch that you would make for yourself? And he's like, well, I don't really have that watch, so here you go. I'm going to kind of make it, and there's the watch. It's the Chronomètre Optimum. So, you know, to own a watch that probably, one of the most important watchmakers of the 21st century made for himself, you know, I think that's a pretty special thing. And it's certainly my favorite Journe, and the one that, if I could only have one, that's the one I want. And I certainly would like to add it to my collection. The next watch, of course, it'll come as no surprise. I'm a big fan of Vacheron Constantin. They're my favorite brand overall. And it's the VC Historiques 1921, the Excellence Platine. I believe they just released this either last year or this year. Again, my good friend Kari in Chrono has this one. Super jealous. I think that's a phenomenal, outstanding piece. Those applied numerals with that frosted dial, it's just absolutely incredible. Again, Geneva Seal movement and case. You got a phenomenal single barrel, 60-hour power reserve movement that Kari Voutilainen, who we'll get to in a second, is very, very fond of. That strap is phenomenal with that platinum stitching. I think they really knocked that watch out of the park. It's by far and away the nicest 1921 they ever made. And I just love the story of that watch. Obviously, there's a number of them. It's the preacher's watch, the driver's watch. I also heard it's the watch that, you know, kind of horseback riders used to wear, so you could see kind of time at a glance because of that slanted dial. You know, I like the fantasy of all of them, even though I'm pretty sure the preacher's watch is probably the most corroborated story. But, you know, it's the fantasy of owning it. That's just cool. It's just, you know, they all connect back to those kind of stories. That's what it's all about. So I really love that watch, and again, that's another Grail level watch. And then the last two, because I'm at 6 now, is a pair of Kari Voutilainens. Of course, guys, if you guys have watched me for any particular period of time, I am probably the biggest fan of Kari out there, even though I don't own his watch. I think he is, you know, I think he's the very best watchmaker in the world. I will pull no punches. I really do believe that. And, you know, I'd be willing to debate just about anybody on that. I think overall the case style, movement finishing, and the overall conception of his watches are made in a fashion that really nobody else does. It really harkens back to that kind of George Daniels type of mindset where everything is made in-house with the utmost quality. And the watches that I would like in particular, one is the 28. It's just a standard kind of manual wind watch. I would want it in a steel case with a white kind of guilloche dial. The reason being is that it would just be super practical and usable for every day. Steel is a great material for that. So I just love that watch also. You know, you get to customize your guilloche pattern and, of course, the movement finishing. You can get pretty much anything you want. So I would love to just work with him and create a watch that I would be able to wear every day. So that's the first one from Kari that I would like to add to the collection. And the next one is in a platinum case. He previously released this, so I'd have to buy this pre-owned, but it's the 217 QRS. And this has a beautiful kind of retrograde date. And actually, there's a YouTube channel. His name is Steve Halleck from Ticktocking is the YouTube channel name. And he did a review of this specific watch, and it's just spectacular. I mean, the guilloche on the dial, the movement finishing. And one thing that's interesting is that retrograde date doesn't flick back to 1 because ultimately it's very damaging for a watch to, you know, kind of deliver that much power in a very short period of time. So what Kari did is he actually implemented a gear train that allows the date kind of the date arm to smoothly sweep back to 1 when it's at 31. So it's a really interesting and cool complication. If you do have the time, please do check it out. What I'll do is I'll link it down in the description. I think it's really worth your time to watch it. But yeah, that would be one that I would seriously love to add to the collection. Those 8 pieces, I think, would be for a real dream collection for me. I mean, 8 in the box, that's it. No 1 on the wrist, no 1 on the winder. 8 and done. Beautiful LV box to go with it. And that's the lottery watch collection, guys. I'd love to get your feedback. Get to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Let me know what you think of the collection. Does it suck? Would you go a totally different direction? Of course, guys, I would love your feedback. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, guys, as you know, my name is Marco. I'm your Watch Cardinal, and I'll see you guys in the next one.